Hi there.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Guys, hi.
Hold on.
A tame 47, Jamie. How did that happen?
What's that?
A tame number of 47. Like only 2 panels of, I feel like we're on Hollywood Squares. Does anybody else get that decided feeling?
The life has gone virtual. So this is now, this is the way we humans do life. Good. I don't like people, let me just get, this is like when we get later in this life that has gone virtual, it won't be this kind of strange experience in the beginning where people are poking around and we talk about muting.
I was going to say we're all dressed from the top up.
That's private, but hold on. 1 second.
Let's hope we remembered anyway.
Yep. Hold on 1 second. So I'm gonna ask.
I don't know the sense of humor of everyone here, so
your humor near is universal.
I'll just do one quote that I saw in a book that is a quote from Hugo, from Victor Hugo, and I thought it's perfect for us. all the forces in the world are not as powerful as an idea whose time has come. Okay,
It's true.
shall I send it to you?
You know, I think we've got it, and you said it so beautifully. So I think that we should start on that. Vanessa, I've given you over administrative duties. So that with the thumbs up, we will get rolling. Everybody on this call is an incredibly special person. But we also have my parents in Kansas City. So I have to give special love to my parents and to everybody. So first, as always, just want to thank everybody. I mean, this has been such an incredible journey, and it's just almost unimaginable to think that it was only 50 days ago that we had this first Zoom call, and now we've come so far. So welcome everybody. We've come a long way together very quickly, and now is a time where we can reflect on where we are and take a little moment and say, where are we and where do we want to go together? And that's all really exciting. We're learning more about this medium of Zoom, which is becoming a more important part of our lives, and how to use chat. And it's difficult because it's like communal, but it's not the same as being in a physical group. So we hope that everybody will very actively use chat as a way of asking questions, as a way of sharing thoughts, as a way of saying things about yourself that you'd like to share, asking people for things about themselves. So let's do that actively. And I'll just have a few words to start things out before I hand things over to Paula. But a friend of mine, A.J. Jacobs, wrote a wonderful book. And the premise of the book was that he was at his coffee shop and his young child said, "Where does your coffee come from, Dad?" And he thought about it. And when he started mapping out all of the people who had played a role in getting him that cup of coffee and the cup and the plants and the flights, it turned out it was many tens of thousands of people. And so he spent a year traveling around the world, finding those people and thanking them for painting the line in the highway in Costa Rica that allowed the truck to get to the airport and not crash. And so I thought a lot about that. And it's like, well, what's our responsibility as people who live in a world where everything that we touch is connected to that much broader group of people? And first is to know who they are. Second, yes, to feel gratitude. But third, if we're all connected, what's our obligation to those people? What's the obligation of the person who's drinking the coffee to the person who's planting the seed that grows the plant that gives the coffee, and all the way down the line? I think that's the essence. I think that's why everybody is here and part of this community. And then how do we build a world where that interconnectivity is respected, and that we're building structures and institutions and norms so that we're all connected, and that we live that way and we realize those principles. And so we've certainly come a long way, but our world is still in this crazy, insane place like it was before. We still have this strange juxtaposition of death and rebirth, of destruction and creation, of people who we're seeing everywhere behaving their best and really just incredible humanity. And we're seeing really the worst of people. And it's certainly my view that this is a very early stage of this crisis. And there's a lot of much worse stuff that's coming, even though some of us are feeling a certain feeling of relief. And as these crises continue to cascade, I think the core issue that brought us all together is just going to be in really sharp relief. And that is that we can't solve any of our big common problems. Our big global problems can't be solved. That's why the pandemics people can't solve pandemics. The climate change people can't solve climate change. The ecosystem people can't solve ecosystem destruction. The weapons of mass destruction people can't solve the proliferation of WMD. And the reason is just this mismatch between global problems and national solutions. And what we're all about here is trying to create not just a voice for our common humanity, which is important, but it has to be a voice that translates into relevance in the decision-making process. I mean, we can do wonderful concerts and consciousness raising and all that stuff, which is essential, but we have to make this voice, this perspective, relevant when decisions are being made, because otherwise it will just be nice and everyone will agree with it in principle, but it's not going to solve those big essential problems that we have. And we uniquely, this isn't the first community that's thought about interdependence, but it's the first community that's thought about interdependence at a moment of historical plasticity like this. I mean, these kinds of moments, they don't come around very often. There was one in 1648, there was 1848, there was 1918, there was 1945, and there's this. And so we have this moment, and it would be great if we said, all right, our leaders got this and we just sit back. But the really frightening thing about this moment is we don't have leaders that can give us a vision that can get us out of this. And so what we're all about is that regular people and spectacular regular people are coming together to say, well, how can we, if our leaders aren't going to lead us, how can we organize in a way that leads ourselves? And that's what this is all about. And I get that these words sound hubristic, audacious, but I think that's the way that we have to think, because the problems are so massive that if we don't think creatively and boldly and inclusively, which is why we talk about a network of networks model, the magnitude of our response won't match the magnitude of the problem. And that's why I think that we really need to think big and bold. And we need to say that placing our interdependence and defending the common needs of our humanity have to be the center of big decisions and individual decisions and the way we live our personal lives, like A.J. Jacobs and the coffee, but big decisions, whether it's at every level of our businesses, our governments, international organizations, G7, G20. And so we need to really think of how do we start from consciousness and education and awareness and go all the way to shifting intangible outcomes, because our whole declaration won't be worth, it's not even on paper, it won't be worth the small amounts of electricity if it doesn't translate into real change. And that's what we really need to think about. And that's the challenge of what we're doing. We certainly have a view of the world and systemic change, but we're not a think tank because we feel like people need to come together to realize a vision. And we certainly are a social movement, but we're very different from Global Citizen that's about consciousness, which hasn't articulated a goal that people are working toward achieving. And that it's a tricky balance because the world kind of wants us to be one thing or wants us to be another thing. But I think we have to keep melding those two pieces together. And Jim McGrath is on this call, who's a wonderful thinker, an entrepreneur who's joined us, and he's going to do an exercise later in this meeting talking about that. And I hope that everybody has seen the strategic plan that's been, an action plan that's posted on the website, and many people on this call played an active role in developing that. We talk about our kind of 4 concurrent strategies for change, which are public education and engagement, network of networks, and building the series of issue campaigns that both try to help solve particular problems, but also make the case that there's a much bigger systemic challenge that touches every one of those. And then 4 is integration. I think that's kind of the ultimate goal, where we change the way that we think of how decisions are made. And so the decisions are made not just at the level of what's the narrow interest of this company or this country, but that we all are thinking about certainly our specific interests, but also broader and more inclusive interests when making all decisions. So that's the goal. And again, Jim is going to lead us on a process to help think about that. We've made, I mean, it's ridiculous the amount of progress that we've made. I mean, one, going from non-existence to existence. We're now in 86 countries. The declaration it's all over the place, and the Pope has it, the Dalai Lama has it. He hasn't tweeted about it. I'm told there will be a tweet, but he's in seclusion. We've launched which we'll hear about, 2 of our campaigns. We're imagining another campaign that's really trying to connect the individual actions and emotional responses from people to the bigger goals. And Miguel and Vishakha and others have spoken about this, and Miguel is going to lead us on a thinking exercise about that. If I'm glowing right now, it's because I'm just off a call with Paula and Katya and Mary and Grace and Omar and Shagun and a number of others on this idea for Interdependence University, which it's so exciting, but you're going to hear more about that on this call. We have our coordinators program, which of our young people, and it's the most inspiring thing I do all week, is join their call on Sundays, because literally if we just said that everybody who's of this slightly older cohort, we are the support staff for these coordinators, just change the world and let us know how we can help, we would do it in about 5 minutes. So that's really, really great. And we have this thing that a number of people on this call are working, is that we are racing forward so fast, and we're building the race car as we go. And so there are growing pains, and they're very, very real. And there are big things that we have to do. We need to continue to grow our community. We're spreading widely, but we need to build our community of people who have joined us and signed the pledge. We need to grow a network of all of our partner organizations. We need to build our capacity, including in these meetings, but more broadly for multi-directional engagement. We definitely need to enhance our diversity, and we're on every call we say that we're an open group. So if there's a voice missing, please, please, please recruit that voice. And we need to make sure that everybody feels that they can contribute whatever it is that they would like to contribute, the best of their capacity, the best of their selves, what they would like to do for this mission. And so now on this, we've come so far, and we still have so far to go. A number of us have been talking about this as a moment for reflection. And I live my life kind of racing, and so I need wise people like all of you and the many of you who I'm in touch with every single day to say, all right, well, we've come this far, and now we need to pause for a moment and reflect and say, what have we done well? What have we not done as well? What are the lessons learned? What are the things that we need to think differently? So we really want to do that. We can't do everything on a short call like this, but we certainly hope that we have a few new ways, and we will develop more for people to contribute. One, really want you to actively use the chat here to share thoughts. Two, really want people to connect with each other. And that's been really nice. Like Ken Dykewald, he reached out to some other people and said, hey, let's talk about this movement. We really want you to connect with each other. And we'll develop better mechanisms for that. But for now, just really think of this as a community. And if there are people you want to connect with, you don't have to do it through us. And it may be, Ken had recommended that people just give a little bit of background about who you are, and in the chat and other ways. So we know we're not as good as we need to be in that area, but we will. And we also have an ideas coordinator who's a designated person from our coordinators program. And so we really welcome your thoughts, big and small, and we're going to pull those together, both from this chat and from those emails, and then we'll present them back to everybody in advance of the next call. So that's, Vanessa, if you could just put this, or Grace and Omar, it's info@OneShared.World. And so we know that not everybody can speak just because there's more people than time, but your perspectives are just deeply, deeply valued. So with that, it's my really great honor to pass things over to Paula, who has just, I think many of you know, has just such an incredible history working with Cesar Chavez and the United Farm Workers, and with the March with Martin Luther King in Selma, and one of the founders of Our Bodies Ourselves, and just kind of such a spiritual guide to me and I think many of us on this call. So Paula, over to you.
Unmuted. Okay. Hi, everybody. It's so good to see so many of you again, and welcome some new people. I just wanted to begin with, something that we've heard a lot of, but it takes a village. And it's been an amazing journey so far. I want to thank Jamie for getting this going, his founding chair vision, and Vanessa from the beginning of being there in Costa Rica and taking time out from climbing her mountain to kind of organizing this. And some of the people out there who I've had a wonderful opportunity to get to know on our various Zoom committees. I'm really ready, guys, to have a glass of Prosecco with any of you in person. So I'm waiting for that day, no matter what else we create. But I'm really in a spirit of thankfulness for having this opportunity. And I wanted to first start out with just an image, if you will, for us to reflect on of interdependence, of something I've been trying to speak about, even with my my small grandchildren. What does that mean? And one of my granddaughters said this morning to me, well, Grandma, we wake up every morning and we all wake up under the same sun. And I really like that image. And I was thinking, well, and for those of us who do get to sleep at night, we also go to sleep under the same moon. So that if a young person who's 8 years old can get that idea that we all exist in the same world, it reflects that wonderful Carl Sagan image that a lot of us have from outer space. It's very artistic and it's very beautiful, of the blue dot in the universe kind of spinning around, and we're all on that blue dot together. And I think the recognition of that and respecting that everyone on our planet is on that blue dot can be an image that we really can take with us before and after these Zoom meetings to be an inspiration. I very much echo what Jamie has begun to say. This pandemic, which is so frightening and scary and has put us into unexpected and uncharted waters, has demonstrated to us that the institutional systems that perhaps some of us hoped would be helpful are broken. So the realization of that is very hard to take in, and seriously broken. And so many countries, so many, not all, but so many countries lack the kind of moral leadership that combines wisdom and compassion to lead us to a better place. And we have some examples out there. I won't go into them right now for time, but we know of some of them, and I'll just mention one, the wonderful leader of New Zealand, who was able to craft together through both wisdom, understanding the science and the health metrics of this, and great empathy and compassion for her people, a way through this pandemic that I only wish all of us on this one blue dot could be experiencing in the same way. I've had the blessing, really, of being a long-time, lifelong nonviolent activist. In addition to my paid job as a university professor, what has really continued all the way through the decades of my life, from being a young person in the civil rights movement, through the first wave of the anti-war movement in the late 60s, to the second wave birthing of the feminist movement in the early 70s, and the nuclear free zone movement, et cetera, et cetera. I was asked by Jamie to reflect a little bit about transformative social change movements. We are definitely a transformative social change movement. We are also, we have pieces of other dimensions and identities to ourselves. But I would say that everybody on this Zoom today is here at least for two reasons. And I'm sure you all have other reasons to add. But let me name the two. One is we all need hope. We need not unrealistic optimism, and we can't afford to stay in pessimism too long, even though we all have bad hair days, especially if we can't get to the barber or the beauty salon. But we need that sense of hope. And that brings everybody here together already. We share something. We heard Jamie's call. We've heard the call of some of the working groups. And part of our essential glue is hopefulness, and how to share that, how to create that, how to activate that. And my friend Vishakha, has really pushed forward the idea of how do we imagine hope? How do we imagine hope as a universal movement that can link all of us, regardless of where we are geographically, where we are in terms of class, race, ethnicity, the gender continuum, etc. I've used the word before on these calls of Ubuntu, which is something that my African students taught me. And it means, in essence, my dignity rests on yours. My life and my well-being rests on your life and well-being. And I think that that word alone can help us understand the best that human beings have constructed in terms of how to live on the one blue dot together. What I wanted to share with you, and again, in just a few minutes I have left, are the learning, the universal learning, I think, that connects the different social change movements that I've had the blessing to be part of. So whether the words came, earlier than I was involved in Gandhi's India, and I know Vishakha's parents were involved in this, to Martin Luther King taking it up in Albany, and then Selma, and then Montgomery, to the anti-war movement that helped us to move our nation out of a terrible, terrible mistaken war, to the rise up of our bodies ourselves, and that all women had the right, as a human right, to take care of their bodies and themselves in violent, free ways, to all the social movements that many of you have been a part of. So there are three things that are universal to building social change, transformative movements. And I am taking this mostly from my dear colleague, Jean-Paul Lederach, who is at the Kroc Institute for Peace and Conflict at Notre Dame. And he wrote a wonderful book called Community and Resiliency. And more than anything else, one of the things that our hope has to give us right now is a sense of resiliency, because we're going to make mistakes and we need to come back. And what resiliency is it comes from a French engineering term where you can melt metal and it melts down to nothing and it looks like a blob, but it has the capacity to reform itself and be resilient and regain its shape. And that's what we're going for in our movement. And there are 3 qualities that we need to have, or 3 attributes of social change movement. The first is safety. Safety. We have to be thinking about how do we create a sense of safety for all the people on the blue dot. It's not by accident that we're focusing on global health, on underserved communities, and biosphere climate issues. We need to find a way from birth to grave to create a sense of safety. Once you have safety, and that's number uno, then everybody deserves to have a voice. Voice. Number 2, we need to find a way to give everybody on this one blue dot a voice in our enterprise as a social movement. We talked in the meeting just before this of reaching out to people that are illiterate, that can we reach out in terms of education of what interdependency might mean for them, all the way through people that have multiple degrees and are kind of living in a much more privileged situation. But how do you create a sense of voice once people feel safe enough to voice their voice? And the third and last thing I'll say has to do with place. So it's safety, voice, and place. And all successful social change transformative movements have responded to this. By place, we mean a place that you feel, each one of you feels at home. A politics of belonging, an arts and culture of belonging, an economics of belonging and not feeling great inequities. To have that sense of place during our life is an essential part of what we're trying to build in terms of interdependency. So I just want to share that with you as 3 essential foundation elements of building our transformative movement for interdependent change together. And I am confident, I am absolutely confident in the group that I see in all these little rectangles and squares in front of me, that with the help of thousands of others that we will bring along over time. Unlike Jamie, I do not travel at 120 miles an hour. I'm slower, but somewhere between my speed and Jamie's, right? We can build this together. We need to build this together. We are blessed to have each other, have found each other, and really, I totally believe that a year from now, we can build something substantial that can have a dramatic effect on moving all of us on this little blue dot to a better place. So I just want to thank Jamie again, thank everybody with all the committees that I've been on, and thank you all that I don't know yet that I will be working with for this opportunity and for giving me personally a sense of hope. It's a real gift you've already given. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paula. That was just beautiful. So leading on from that, many people, Vishakha, as Paula mentioned, and others have suggested something essential, that we can't just be about systemic change. We need to think about doing what Gandhi did, is to create a continuum between not just all of our consciousness, but small actions that people can take that aggregate into a new vision of the kind of world that we would like to build. I mean, the model that I think many people talk about is that there wasn't, I mean, it's good to make your own clothes, but Gandhi kind of found that one little image, that one little action that spoke to the bigger story. And when all of those actions added up, it was this revolutionary change that became irresistible. So Miguel has also been a real champion of saying we need to kind of find that way of connecting with people, of galvanizing people through an emotional story. And we've been certainly with the declaration and the pledge, it's been very intellectual and conceptual, but to make that emotional and then to have it translated for people into actions that are meaningful for them, but they feel are part of something bigger. So for now, Miguel is going to lead us in an open conversation about that. And so hand it over to Miguel. I think the easiest way is if you'd like to speak, indicate that by raising your hand in chat. So Miguel, over to you.
Yeah, indeed, Jamie, and thank you, Paula, in very inspiring words. And as Jamie was mentioning, the idea is to come up with another campaign in addition to the ones we already have that deal with global health and the environment. A campaign, that is made up of everyday actions, practical actions that people all over the world do that relate or translate interdependence, right? That take interdependence to our everyday lives. Jamie made a very good example with Gandhi. What was independence about? Well, sewing your own or doing your own clothes instead of using the ones imported from Britain. We have hundreds of examples from movements and revolutions from around history and the world. A Portuguese revolution used, carnations. We had the other revolutions using colors, like Velvet Revolution in the Ukraine, you might remember that. Violet has been used for women's rights. A friend of mine launched a campaign to prevent dry eye, so they came up with a song and a ringtone that every time it rang on your phone, it reminded you to blink. So we are looking for something similar. We are looking for to brainstorm ideas. We have to create a small focus group or task force, but let's take advantage of this plenary, of the talent here to hear a couple of ideas. I know Vanessa has a few, so I'm very happy to start with her, but I've seen already a few like Vishakha, and yeah, it's really an opportunity. We are already making history, but I think it's an opportunity to make even more history by coming up with the symbol and the practical action of the interdependence movement. So Vanessa, do you have a few ideas?
Well, yes, I have ideas. What I've been thinking about is really how we put all of this into practice, something really tangible that is accessible to the farthest reaches of the blue dot. And I worked on a project in my past career, postgraduate, on a book called No Ordinary Disruption, and it's really analyzes the ability for technology to be disruptive in creating a new platforms. And the examples of this disruptive technologies are Airbnb, LinkedIn, Uber, that kind of thing. And I think what we need is to build some sort of open platform, virtual open platform that is transparent and public, and that it gives an access to everyone that wants to be involved and wants to participate in their individual ways. And so that was just one of my big ideas. And just thinking more and more of where we take what we're doing as far as the pledge, the declaration is our consciousness, and how do we actually practice interdependence. And so I'm just trying to take from the concept and the ideas to actually, how do we do this? How do we practice this? And what I'm thinking is that we need some sort of disruptive technology, infrastructure platform that's public and open and transparent. And I'm not a technical person, so, but I know it's possible because we've seen it in other sectors the global, the global platform. So back to you, Miguel.
Thank you. Any ideas, any comments, any out of the box ideas?
What was the example from
I
Ghana?
think Vishakha has raised her hand, I see.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't see everyone. Vishakha,
Yeah.
please.
Thank you. Thank you again, Jamie, Paula, Miguel, to get us going. Some of us have been having lots of conversations, emails, phone calls. Part of it, I think what is very clear is that all of us are actually looking for that idea of how to manifest this notion of interdependence that people can actually apply to an action. So one thought that I had was actually just put it out there that would go back to what Vanessa was saying, is that what does interdependence mean to you? And how would you show it in action? And have that as a crowdsource, yeah, exactly, as Mary has just put it out there, and see what comes out. That in itself would be the first action. And that would follow our strategy plan in terms of, it's also about education. Because let's face it, one of the things about this concept is that some people feel it's too abstracted. That's how we came up with OneShared.World, right? So people need to see it in person. So let's say we ask people to say, not only what does it mean to you, how would you show it in an action? See what comes up. We don't have to have all the answers. The second piece that I think is worth thinking about, which is what some of the conversations we've been having, is around what we call vulnerable communities. In different countries, the notion of vulnerable communities, we all kind of feel what it is, but it may be slightly different. So for example, what Jackie has said in the arts and culture side is that people don't think artists are vulnerable communities. And yet they are. They're deeply affected by COVID-19 in a way that makes them extremely vulnerable. And yet the question is not how we define a vulnerable community, but how do we actually say we are interdependent with that community? So the question is not simply some people are suffering and we need to help them. It is, if we need to help them, it's because it's in our shared interest. And how do we actually continue to develop that? As we've talked about in other groups, is that, Alexandra Octavio-Cortez has now started doing things about Take Back the Block. It's community inside, it's local. People may do things at a local level. What sometimes is harder is for us to go from the local to the bigger world, which is what Paula, you so beautifully talked about your granddaughter. And I want to steal that line. We all wake up to the same sun. How do we actually get that idea into the action that we're talking about? So it's worth thinking about these two campaigns that are out there. Some people feel that it's sort of still too abstract, it's kind of policy oriented. We need to do that, but we need to translate it back into individual action. So I would suggest that we give some thought to the notions of vulnerable communities. Most of us are not as vulnerable, although I would say we as a planet are vulnerable, because what COVID has pointed out is that coronavirus actually is in our body. When it comes to us, it's in our body. So the world is in our body. So we're all vulnerable. But the reality is how to make that interdependence of the vulnerability very, very clear. So it might be worth thinking about what would make it manifest. And I suggest that COVID-19 is still a very good starting point, and use it to go to the next level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very interesting concepts and a lot to think about and talk further. Vishakha, thank you. Thomas Schindler has a couple of ideas to share as well.
Thank you. I would like to connect to both of you, Vanessa and Vishakha, So I do have a background in technology, and I've been building digital businesses and platforms for the last more than 20 years. And by the way, if I sound a little brain dead, that's because I am. I'm on my 14th hour of calls today. So I try to focus. So I think it is absolutely vital to have a good digital platform that can scale, but at a much, much later stage. At the moment, we have no idea how we actually can engage and to really, as Jamie said, think big. We want to reach 7.5 billion people before it becomes 10 billion people, right? So we have to find a way to really create that engagement right now. And the way that was done for each of us when we were like a year old, 1.5 years old, was we tried 400 times without success to try to walk. And then suddenly it worked. What I'm trying to say is, instead of thinking and theorizing, let's all take a week to come up with one thing, ask around, engage with your immediate environment, the people around you, to come up with one thing that symbolizes interdependence that can be taken in your everyday life. And then we bring that into this group and share our experiences. And from there, we can make a decision of which things might actually touch upon that and might be scalable. And then we can think about how we can support that with technology. But I think it has to be tangible. We have to feel it, we have to experience it, we have to make mistakes, we have to fail, and then we learn. So that's my 2 cents.
Great comments. Mary Papazian wanted to share with us a few ideas as well.
Thank you, Miguel, and hello, everyone. I'll keep this brief, but perhaps it was the discussion around disruptive technologies, Vanessa, that took me here, but with a group of university presidents, of which I'm one, went to Zappos, the shoe company, to learn. And I do think part of this is creating a mindset that is who we are and who people are, that impacts the way we behave. And one of the things Zappos did, which I thought was incredible, was they created this culture of hope and engagement and empowerment at every level by saying to people, it was really the challenge, what one thing can you do today, one small thing that will make the world a better place? Just a small thing. Because, thinking about something that anybody can do, however modest, however from all resource levels, but we all can think of something in terms of how we can make the world a better place. And, something like that, it is very local on the one hand, probably, but the local is the global, and the global without the local has no foundation. So I was just going to, put that one out there, Miguel.
Excellent. Thank you very much for the contribution. I think we're building on top of each other, so this is great. So we want to continue. Ken Dykewald would like to share a few things as well.
Thank you, and thank you everybody again for coming together. I'd like to create a global activity where young children, let's say, will focus this on Paula's grandchild's age of 9, are tasked in their school programs all over the world to do 2 things. One, to create a visual depiction of what a OneShared.World feels and looks like. And I'd like to see that be an assignment for children to come up with an explanation of how the world could be better if we're all connected. My hope would be that if something like this could be instituted through all the school systems, which are largely being done at home now, that we might have, pick a number, hundreds of thousands of kids sending in their drawings and their ideas. There probably will be similarities. And I can easily imagine if that were promoted, getting 1 billion media impressions, which would be a way to get the concept of one shared world and interdependence into people's minds all over the world, not being told about it by a professor type, but from the eyes and visions and hearts of children.
So let me just jump in. I think all these ideas are awesome. I love what Ken said, and that's just like a general thing until proven otherwise. Everything that Ken says sounds awesome to me. And I think that it's so clear that we have to do this. It's such a good idea. And I know there are people who still have things they'd like to say now, but if we can table that, and here's my recommendation. As I was saying on our last call, the highlight of my week is being on the young coordinators calls on Sundays, because they're so smart and so brilliant and energized. What I'd like to recommend is that we kind of flip our structure on its head a little bit, and that we ask Omar and Grace and the coordinators to set up a committee around this idea, and that everybody on this call and everybody in the community, we can volunteer to join, and let's have a little group, and it's totally open to everybody to come up with this. I think this idea, we have to do it. It's great. And then let's think about what's the smartest way, and we can do that, I think, very, very quickly. So if we can agree to that as an action item, and we can ask Omar and Grace to say on your team, who are the people who'd like to run it. But I think this could just be wonderful, really transformative for us. And so apologies for moving on. It's always, every topic could be the full time, and we have so much to cover. So really, really wonderful. So now, in addition to that, we have our two existing task forces, or not task forces, campaigns that are moving forward pretty quickly. And so we'd love to get just some very short updates. The first is the Global Public Health campaign, and we have Divya Chander and Donna Hackley who are going to give us a quick update. So Divya and Donna, over to you.
Hi, everybody. It's lovely to see all your beautiful faces. I want to say that I think that our initiative is really interconnected to the initiatives on vulnerable people and climate change, as you'll see. But I'm going to describe the initiative in a few words and tell you some of the people who are on our committee, and then let Donna explain to you how we've moved forward with this. So the idea came about, we discussed the idea of addressing global public health, but as you might imagine, that is such a massive topic that we decided to constrain it to pandemic resilience, but considering global health in that context. And so the pieces of this were, how do we assemble a team of experts that could answer this question? But we didn't want to just stick with North Americans, for instance. It was very important for us to bring in a diversity of opinions so that we could get some real ground truth. And as you'll see from the questions that Donna will talk to you about, there are questions about what currently exists and what should exist if we had that ideal system and could create it de novo. And so, you know, for somebody who's in Boston, Massachusetts, and somebody who's in a village in Rwanda, the reasons that what we would love to see and what we currently have and the reasons they don't match may have very, very different origin stories. And it may be everything from sanitation to you know, political freedoms to trust within community. Imagine trying to give a vaccine to somebody, you know, which happened actually during Ebola, when they actually think that they're being injected by something that might control them or something they don't understand. So all of these stories were important. So Donna and I are co-directing the initiative. Our chairs and the people who will be the face of our initiative are Michelle Williams, who is the Dean of Public Health at Harvard Medical School, and she's our North American. But we also have Jack Sim, and Jack Sim is from Singapore. And I don't know how many of you know him, but he calls himself the world's #2 man. And that's because he founded the World Toilet Organization. And he also had to fight the WTO because of that trademark that happened in 2001. But the idea that he's bringing to the table is that no one can truly be healthy. No one can truly have their needs met if their water is so unclean that they can't drink it, if they don't have the most basic hygiene, their hygiene needs met. So we have this sort of representation of two parts of the world. And then we have a really wonderful expert advisory committee. And our goal has been to get them a questionnaire from which we will extract answers and put them into a 2 to 3 page blueprint that we can follow for the future. And then we can work on things like action towards achieving these goals and potential funding for these goals. So Donna, I'm going to pass it over to you. Donna, are you muted?
There we go. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Divya and Jamie and everyone. Great to be here. And we have sent out our questionnaire. It came with a cover letter introducing the topic to make sure that each of our experts on the Global Health Committee was up to speed with what OneShared.World is doing and our mission before us. We have about 15 members on the expert members on the committee, and we asked them to answer 5 questions. And the first is, if we were to reimagine the ideal and start de novo, what would a global health system look like that would protect the entire population from deadly pandemics? Our second question was, if we were, in what ways does our current global health system differ from the ideal? In other words, as Jamie says, what's the delta? And what are the consequences of this shortfall? The third is, what immediate steps should we take to improve the public health of people across the globe threatened or harmed by COVID-19, especially people in parts of the world in poorer countries with weak public health infrastructure that will soon experience the peak in cases? Fourth, what changes, including but not limited to structural, technological, possibly political, economic, are needed to close the gap between numbers 1 and 2, the ideal and what is existing? And we asked them to give examples of things that they've seen work, or also to think as freely and widely as they can. And then the last question was, how can we best achieve these goals sustainably, and how should we measure success? What's our unit of measure? What are our outcomes we're looking for? So we hope to have that back within a week's time, and then we will have a final report, hopefully in about 3 weeks, where we've compiled all the responses. Then we plan to distill that down, and that way we can prepare a campaign, an advocacy campaign, and our 2 project coordinators, who are Malaika and Marie, will be working on an action toolkit that can be shared with people so that they know in the grassroots social movement way, what can they do in real time to make a change here.
That's great. Thank you, Don. And just so for all of the campaigns, that's the way it's going to work. We'll have an expert advisory committee. They'll come up with the 2 or 3 page document in bullet points answering the version of those 5 questions for every topic. What should it be? What's the difference between what it should be and what it is? What are emergency steps that we have to do now? And how do we start building from what is to what we need? And how do we measure our success? Every one of the campaigns will be based on those 5 questions. And then we'll have the expert report, which will be 2-3 pages. Just like we did with the declaration and the pledge, we'll have a shorter version. We'll launch the report with a popular campaign where we're going to get people to sign this pledge for, in this case, pledge for public health. The second they do, they'll be directed to a toolkit that Malaika and Marie and Paula and others are working on, where it's like, it's not enough to sign a pledge. Here's what's required of you. Here's how you can make change. Here's how you can reach out to people. Here's what you can do on social media. Here's how you can organize your school, your church, your mosque, whatever. And so that's the goal is, once you accept the principles of interdependence, that second, all these obligations arrive at your door, and it's hard work. And that's what we're trying to bring people into. So next, and we have to speed up a little, so we only have 32 minutes left, but we have a huge amount of ground to cover. So for everybody, and again, it's frustrating by definition to have so many people and so much wisdom and to just have limited time, but we'll keep moving. So next is our campaign addressing the needs of the most vulnerable, and that's Rick Barton and Tia. Over to you.
Thanks, Jamie. I'm not sure all of you can see Tia Herman on your screen right now, but she is our coordinator and the secret weapon that Jamie keeps referring to, or not so secret weapon because he keeps referring to it. But we're working together tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. We have a Zoom call. We hope with kind of an initial representation of people from various parts of the world. We need two things from you. So all of you, a number of you have already sent us names of friends or others that you think should be included. They don't need to be established leaders. We welcome younger students. We welcome civic activists, whatever whoever you think will be of great help. We're really trying to, initially we started looking at how we could get at this issue through the virus crisis. And we wanted to look at essentially 3 steps to minimize the suffering immediately, but then look for 3 to 5 big that this crisis makes possible. So what we need from you is people to engage, preferably from the Global South. We recognize that we have a bias right now and that we don't want to encourage and that we feel will not be healthy. Leaders, potential leaders are welcome. We're happy to work ourselves out of any titular roles to find more entitled people to do this, and we're looking for big ideas as well. So I've noticed a few on the chat, but feel free to reach out to either Tia or myself. And Tia, do you want to speak up so people at least get to know your face and your voice?
Hello, everyone. My name is Tiana. You can call me Tia, and I have been working with Rick. And we, like Rick has mentioned, have been reaching out to a number of individuals that can offer us a lot of insight into this deliverable that we're making, which is answering a lot of the same questions that Jamie brought up earlier, but we're sort of looking at it not solely focusing on public health, but looking at some of the other implications that arise from this pandemic and some of the vulnerable communities and places in the world where maybe the resources are not there, and how we need to work on addressing those vulnerabilities. So that's the work that we're doing, and we're very excited about our call tomorrow. We have a number of people that have already said that they will be on, and we have some that we're waiting on to hear back from. So we're hoping that we'll get a lot of insight from that, and we'd love to get more names for people that we can reach out to.
Great, thank you. And we should point out that the reason Paula Rayman is beaming is because this is her granddaughter. Paula, you have to show less pride, please.
Yeah. No, I said there's no other appropriate word in any other language than Yiddish to describe that look, and it's called kvelling. So kvelling. Great. Well, thank you so much for that, and we're looking forward to the call tomorrow morning. So Lu Chen, just a few words about outreach and building this currency that's so essential, which is getting people to join our movement by signing our pledge. That's how we have different armies we're building. One is this army of these incredible young people who are coordinators, but we also need to keep growing the people joining the movement. So Lu Chen, over to you.
Thank you, Jamie. As Jamie said, after we launch the movement, we've been building the not only the momentum, but our community as well. So on behalf of the engagement working group, I'd like to actually first thank the folks, everyone first, and who send out the individual emails, organizational emails, such as Paula, Ken, Miguel, send out emails to organizations, engage a different variety of people from, as Jamie said, 86 countries now. You know, when we launched ourselves, it was 35 countries, I believe. Now we got 86. So that's a fast growth within 2 weeks. More organizations are joining, and I've heard also that some universities have been pledging to support this movement as well. So as we work together to continue grow this momentum, I hope everyone find your own way. As JV said again, we start the ball is rolling. We don't have to send the emails, but somehow, somewhere, someone is roll it for us. So hopefully that will be the mechanism we build. And thirdly, to make it more accessible and easy, we are also simplifying the pledge language. Right now, we're working on another draft. A few folks have already put your input and helped dramatically with how we simplify the language to make it more accessible. And one comment, even from today's chat, Laura McGrew also suggests that we'd like to use more images, visuals, to make it even more accessible. So we'd like to seek every talent that this group may have. So if you please reach out to me, have great ideas how we may get this ball rolling even bigger and faster. That's my update.
Great. Thank you so much, Lu-Chen. And we hope that everybody is just being absolutely shameless in reaching out to people, really, because we were talking about all humans. Anybody, and we're for the whole planet. So, but for signing this pledge, humans only, please keep at it. It's really, really important. And if just everybody does 3 people a day and we'll keep growing and then bringing people into our community. That's just so important. Anyway, so speaking of quelling, I said that I was quelling when I first got on this call because we had such a wonderful call about this idea, Interdependence University. We may not call it university, Interdependence Academy, something or other, but our education initiative. And love to ask Mary and Katya to speak about that.
Thank you, Jamie. And this idea really grew out of the engagement group. And it's this fundamental belief that we need a shared understanding of the language, and that really to provide people out there near and far with the tools they need to really understand how interdependence, how it can be represented, what might be the call to action, how to think about it. And so this idea of Interdependence University, I suspect we won't end up with a university title by the time we're done, but it really is a space for learning, for education, and for sharing of ideas, not addressed to any particular age or sector at this point, but really thinking about how to reach intergenerational audiences, from the very young to the young at heart, and everything in between, because ultimately it's the wisdom of those who have lived a long time that will really help, I think, provide the strength to this incredible group of young people coming up. And the biggest gift we give them is to somehow improve the world and the way we work and live in it. And so what does that look like? It could look like, resources. It could be lectures. It could be a digital course, perhaps, that a young person might put on, through a webinar, for example, on a LinkedIn page or some other mechanism. But so there's many ideas. I would say that if anybody has an idea on what to call this or what it should start as, what we don't want to do is create something too hierarchical and structural that it doesn't allow voices in from every direction. And I think if we truly are interdependent, we allow voices to come from all sides and to intersect with them. I'm going to turn it over to Katya now. She's one of the co-leads on it with Paula, who apparently is a Wonder Woman. But Katya, why don't you share some of your ideas on this and how people can get engaged?
Thank you, Mary. So as we just had our first call right before this call, and it's very, very exciting. And adding to what Mary already mentioned is, this is to empower people out there to help us spread the word. So we already heard about 3 incredible campaigns. So there we already create toolkits that we can provide to other people to build up this movement. And I mentioned earlier that Al Gore's initiative, the Climate Reality Leaders, they're doing an amazing job to go around the world and train potential leaders. So this is kind of my vision, you know, that we train everybody who believes in what we do, so they can go and within their community, within their network, and we give them the toolkits. And you know, we might call it however, the university is a working title, and we discussed about that we don't want to make it an elite thing. It's, as Jamie used to say, we are radical inclusive. So we are very, you know, very much looking forward to everybody who wants to join us. Be more than welcome. We need every great mind and hands. So if you have ideas, please share, and I'm sure next time we can tell you more about this initiative.
So you can keep going, Katja, because you're next on the agenda, talking about the national German initiative as the foundation for the national initiatives, and looking at you, Kim and Fabio, because South Africa and Brazil are next. So Katja.
Okay, so what we are starting actually is, actually already started on May 6th, right after our launch. Jamie had an interview at Deutsche Welle, which is an international TV news channel translated into 30 languages. Today we have published on Focus, which is a German news channel, an editorial, and they have a monthly unique users of more than 30 million. So this is a great start. We are planning a press event with a German media with OneShared.World and the DLD conference. And for those who don't know DLD conference, they call themselves the Europe's leading innovation conference to me, but I'm very biased on that because I'm a big fan. To me, it's one of the global innovation, the leading innovation conferences around the globe. So they have a huge network. They are part of a media company, so they have huge media coverage in international, but since they're based out of Munich, very much in Germany. And once their magazines and websites and anything write about it, you can be sure that all the big newspapers will pick it up because they are kind of a thought leader in what they do, which is great. And I know Alexandra from DLD tried to be on the call. I haven't seen her. Alex, if you're around, raise your hand and say hi. But I guess she didn't make it. 11 p.m. over here, so I can't blame her. And well, what we do after that, the press conference is announcing a thought leadership event with Jamie and local experts from Germany and international experts to talk about coronavirus, how coronavirus broke the world, and how we can build back together. So this is something we'd like to share with our community, but as well, you know, DLD will help us to share it with their community. And building on that, we will create more coverage in the market. And our idea was to use that as a kind of model or blueprint for other markets, where we of course have regional differences, but you know, we can build on that model for other markets.
Great. Thank you so much, Katja. I think that just for the other countries, this thing of partnering with a big organization, like I know Kim through Singularity, and then we do a joint high-profile virtual event, and we can draw on, there's so many experts in our community. And then we use that event because as we grow our list of all the people who have signed on to our pledge, once we get big numbers, we can go really to any organization in the world. We can go to TED, World Economic Forum, any organization. Say we're bringing 100,000, a list of 100,000 people who we're going to invite to a virtual event. And once we have that, we do the thought leadership and the organization, and we can just essentially hijack their platform, which comes back to why building our community is so important and why getting people to sign the pledge. It's building our capacity to engage, and the more people we have, frankly, the less resources we need, because we can just have partner organizations do the work, because we're bringing so much value. So thank you to Katja and again, Kim and Fabio and others. We can just export this model. It's simple and easy for us to do. now going to Jim. Jim is this secret weapon who's just so amazing. And we had 15 minutes for this, Jim. And I'm so sorry, but I think we have to make it like 5 minutes. But I think we need to virtualize. So Jim, please introduce your concept and then we can contribute. I think we should do actually a whole separate email, which we'll do later with a Google Doc of what Jim is about to talk about. So we'll get a little bit of input now, but we'll do it virtually after. So over to you, Jim.
Thanks, Jamie. Then let me contextualize this so that I can set a framework that I think people will be able to contribute to, hopefully, in a little bit. We'll carry it on. So across a number of initiatives that I've led, I found that the best way to succeed is to predefine success. An effective tool to achieve this is to craft a view of the past from the future that I call a future retrospective. So please step forward with me for a few minutes to 2025 with a look at the world at that time and a review of what led to our success and our global impact. So Jamie's asked me to wrap this up with a discussion, which now will become virtual, to expand upon a handful of very specific measurable outcomes that I'll outline. So today, hold for a second, today is May 6th, Tuesday, 2025. Over the past century, the idea of a Declaration of Interdependence has been championed by a number of politicians, organizations, artists, scientists, including Einstein, Will Durant, Jane Goodall, Desmond Tutu, Deepak Chopra, all of whom attempted to promote the concept, but only with limited success. The world just wasn't ready. However, momentum was growing from the first reference to a Declaration of Interdependence back in 1933. So by May 2003, Google already had over 2,000 web pages referencing the term Declaration of Interdependence. By 2011, there were 77,000 pages. By May 2020, the term logged 5.7 million pages. Today, in 2025, there are over 5 billion pages referencing global interdependence. That's more than the number of Google pages referencing Earth itself. And more significantly, global interdependence is now an internalized and integral part of our thinking, our discussions, our actions, and our mandates. Today, May 6, 2025, is the 5th anniversary of the adoption of the 21st Century Declaration of Interdependence, publicizing the concept of global interdependence. This was championed, as you know, by a global group of hundreds of thought-leading coordinators and creators. So why did this happen? Because COVID-19 simultaneously made evident to billions of people our shared and our interdependent fate. And why and how this occurs reflects the growing awareness back in 2020 of common humanistic needs when confronting suffering and loss, where the pain of the loss of one became indistinguishable from the pain of the loss of many. A mother crying over the death of her child, her husband, or parent felt the same pain whether in the US, Italy, Israel, Kenya, China, Russia, Australia, or Brazil, as all mothers everywhere. And over 5 years, OSW led a series of focused campaigns that viscerally and simply visualized for billions of people to understand this inextricable interconnectedness and the common desires of people globally. While people understood that pandemic viruses, toxic air, and dead oceans know no boundaries, OSW helped people see and feel a future with these problems unaddressed and understand the needs to solve these problems together without regard to nationalism. So what did OSW do? What did OneShared.World do, and how is it measurable today in 2025? First, OneShared.World exploded with passion, with energy, and with effective execution among hundreds and thousands of people starting in 2020. Next, OSW coordinated a network of networks, collaborative exchange of ideas and support, created an interdependence academy, we'll see what it's called, to educate, to share intergenerationally, and to reframe our thinking. And OSW supplied sophisticated tools and common language, concepts, and artistic and scientific visualizations of both challenges and of outcomes. Global discussion became global mandates for political reformation at a historically unprecedented pace. OSW fueled an exponential growth of signatories also, and supporters, doubling initially every month, our challenge, doubling every month from 1,000 in May 2020 to 1 million by 2021, then doubling every 4 months to 1 billion by 2024. So here are some metrics. I'll take a slightly different approach. There you go. If you can read. I don't know, Jamie, if you can spotlight.
Vanessa is, I think, is our moderator.
I think these may be more readable. if you can spotlight me. In any case, so here are some metrics, and this is the crux of the thinking. We're in 2025. We have metrics, okay? This is written from the future. I wrote it originally as a Time magazine article. So here are the metrics. There are 100 million people who now publish their thoughts in their communities and globally, expressing a new respect for our essential diversity and common humanity. They regularly publish, 100 million people publish these thoughts. A 2025 poll showed that 35% of families worldwide declared global interdependence as an expected way of life. So it's pervasive. The UN has adopted and added an 18th SDG called Global Interdependence. The World Economic Forum in 2019 had a single platform shaping the future of trade and economic interdependence. This year, in 2025, every WEF platform incorporates global interdependence in some manner. Global interdependence is within the top 3 issues among G7 political campaigns. Now, 200 million blogs of the 700 million bloggers worldwide discuss global interdependence, with 10 million of 35 million worldwide bloggers referencing the term at least 4 times per year. Now, that's a mouthful, but the point is, it's a metric. And 80% of Fortune 100 companies, whether you like business or not, 80% of them reference global interdependence in their annual reports. So wrapping up, you may be aware of a phenomenon called the overview effect. So this is a cognitive shift in awareness of our single shared world and our shared humanity, reported by astronauts viewing the Earth from space. In the early 20s, so back in the early 20s, citizens' access to personal space travel, non-astronauts included celebrities, leaders, and common citizens. They all experienced the overview effect. So sorry, I should have given you these second points. So as Carl Sagan has been referenced now, so eloquently stated, the Earth is a very small stage reading in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors so that in glory and triumph, they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely indistinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in this universe are challenged by this point of pale light. So, in summary, it's the clarity of our interdependence in 2025 contrasted with a billion mothers' angst over the risk that we simply erase our tiny pale blue dot from existence. And this has led to a new perspective, a global perspective, and hopefully one that these mothers' children and their children will grow, thrive, and reach for the stars with the new outlook. So now, let's go back in time today. We're back at May 20th, 2020. I've offered some thoughts. This is just a handful of starting points, but if the degree to which we can define a set of metrics and define the world as we see it as a measurable outcomes of the effort that we're taking now in 2025, if we can offer this up and we begin to propagate this thinking among the thousands, then 10,000s and millions and a billion people think en route to this, people will embrace this and it will become a set of North Stars that's appropriate to each of the teams, the organizations worldwide, globally, that are looking at what we need to achieve. It's so hard when you're right now and saying, gee, what steps do we take? Because you get lost in the challenge of taking one step at a time. But if you leap ahead and you create an image measurably of what the world will look like and how it will have been changed, and you get clear on that, then it's possible to step back and say, okay, now I know what decision to make, what priority to take, where do I put my money and energy and time and effort? So I've gone over. Thanks, Jamie.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jim. So essential and really, really important. And again, it's the frustration of this medium that it's really hard to engage everybody as much as we can. But this is such a great conversation starter, and it's a great, wonderful vision for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to capture this video itself, which of Jim's presentation, which was wonderful. We'll also later today send a link to a Google Doc with the content, and we really want everybody to engage with that document. And don't take out, because that'll happen for everyone, but please add and please comment. So we'll send that around today. So thank you so much, because it's the two things. It's the big vision, and then really big, brick by brick or bit by bit, connecting the steps that we take. It's the same point as we made in the beginning with our conversation about the big picture change of the world and these individual actions. And we need to do, also to do that collectively and organizationally. So thank you so much to you for that, Jim. And so we're gonna, with your permission, everybody, I think if we went 7 or 8 minutes over, I think that would give us enough time to capture some of these last things, so which I think are really important. And frankly, I think especially with our cultural presentation, this is like a sweetener to hang in there, because you're gonna get a world-class performance at the end of this, so don't go away. But to do all of this, we need to build. And so the building blocks are ideas, people, and resources. So we're talking about ideas, but I want to talk about people. And I want you all to learn a little bit more about the incredible energy coming out of our coordinators program. And so Grace and Omar, over to you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Omar, and alongside Grace, as Jamie just mentioned, we're going to be providing you with a quick update on what the Coordinators program has been up to. So from my side, there's 2 updates. It's one on the growth side and a quick note about reorganization. On the growth side, our numbers have really expanded quite tremendously and will continue to do so, and we're very, very excited about that. We've been working closely with our recruitment and onboarding coordinator, Shagun Sethi, who's been a truly phenomenal resource to OneShared.World and has been helping a lot in that process. One of the things that we've put in place is a coordinator recruitment program, and this is a very exciting step for us. We're formalizing the application process and the interview process, as well as how we're onboarding people in general. In a sense, we're sort of hardening up the recruitment process altogether. You know, OneShared.World will always be very open in terms of its pledge, its purpose, and how we welcome participants. But for our internal workings, we're shifting from sort of a membrane-less organization to something of a semi-permeable membrane. Just, you know, a couple of checks in order to make sure that we're recruiting the right types of skill sets. Ultimately, for you guys as volunteers, the end result here is that you're going to have a pool of more capable coordinators with specified skill sets who should be able to help execute the incredible visions that you guys are putting forward. So this is, you know, this mark of formalization is really an exciting step for the organization. We're really excited to help grow our ranks, and we think it's going to add a lot of capability and competency to the recruitment side of things, or sorry, to the coordination side of things. So we're very excited about that. And of course, as always, this is an open call to everybody on the plenary to please throw anybody you have our way in terms of, you know, people you think might be useful contributors to the coordination group. On the reorganization side, it's a very quick note. We used to have primary and secondary coordinators. We've done away with that, and it's a minor distinction, but we've moved to terminology which is point people and then the rest of the coordinators. And the thought process there was just that, you know, we wanted people taking more ownership, and we thought that the term secondary might be taken a little bit too literally. So for working group volunteers and for working group leaders, that's just something we wanted you guys to be aware of. And now that the boring part is done, on to the much more exciting things, social media related, that Grace is going to catch you up on.
Great, thank you, Omar. So I'm just going to give a quick update on behalf of all the coordinators who are working on the social media team. We have made great progress just in the past few days of building up our pages, and I encourage you all to go look at them after the call and continue to engage with them on all platforms. And also, I just want to thank you all for the inspiration. Our chat has been going off during this meeting of all sorts of comments that the social media team has just taken from the thoughts shared here. So thank you for providing the inspiration, and we're excited to see what's coming up. But I wanted to share a new initiative that the social media team is starting. We want to do somewhat of a weekly series, and it actually ties in perfectly with many of the comments made at the beginning. But each week, we are going to send out a form to the OneShared.World community to answer just a few questions centered around the movement. And it really is a totally voluntary process, and just know that some of your responses will be posted on the social media, but it is a great way for the broader world to get a sense of who our people are and what they believe. So this week, our questions are very simple. It's just, what does interdependence mean to you? And ask you to tell a quick story about a time that you recognize the interdependence in the world. And we also ask you to attach a quarantine photo that we can use on our social media. So after I'm done speaking, I will put that form within the chat and invite you all to fill it out when you have time. It shouldn't take you longer than 5 minutes and is completely voluntary, but we would love to hear your responses and look forward to sharing the thoughts of this wonderful community on social media. So thank you all.
Thank you so much, Grace, and thank you so much, Omar. I mean, it's, as I've said before, the highlight of my week is joining the coordinators call on Sundays, because there's so many great ideas and just people just taking like a side comment, a thought, and then next week it's like, oh, we've done like 500 things. I mean, it's so creative. And maybe if you who are on Instagram have seen our latest Instagram star, Paula, who has been profiled. But I think that this kind of creativity, and they're really smart on social media, but I think it's going to be very helpful. Not everybody, myself included, are that sophisticated in this space. But I think that if we can share ideas and content, they can help get it out into the world. So it's really fantastic. So people we're building, we're hoping to have hundreds in our coordinators program relatively quickly, and that'll really be able to empower everything that we're doing. And resources. I mean, so Betsy Fader and Tracy are on point for our preliminary fundraising efforts, and it's critically important for our growth, and we're off to a good start. We need to keep rolling. So Betsy and then Tracy.
Sure, thank you, Jamie. Yeah, so as Jamie's mentioned, we need ideas, we need people, and we need resources. And we have begun raising funds both for the startup costs of OneShared.World and also to grow the organization, as you may know. Hopefully you all received a fundraising letter from me asking for you to consider making a financial contribution to support our development and our growth using the donate button on the website, if you are able. And we've had a really nice response so far. We're hoping for more. But we're also identifying foundations to engage and other sort of very large sources of funding that we might be able to tap into. And in addition, we have 2 donor events that are coming up on May 27th and on June 3rd. So I'm going to turn it over to Tracy to say a few words about the donor events. And in the meantime, please don't hesitate to reach out to me via email or the chat or whatever with suggestions or contacts you may have that you think that we should connect with, because now is really the time for us to be getting the word out and getting people excited and contributing to what we're doing financially. So Tracy, I'll turn it over to you for a few words about the upcoming events.
Great, thank you very much, Betsy, and also Jamie and the whole team who are working on, I know, the budget, so that we can kind of get both the startup costs and also begin to think about strategic visioning or ahead. So the figure we're not entirely clear on yet, but we know that we need to keep ahead of any bills that come in and opportunities that we have. So we've decided to hold 2 donor briefings. One is on Wednesday the 27th at 1 p.m. Pacific time and 4 p.m. Eastern time and 8 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, and one on 6/3, which is June. So they're the same call. And we, Jamie and I did a letter, which we were happy, very happy that both Betsy and Rita Blitt agreed to be co-signers on, so that we can gather a few people. The donor community tends to be very overwhelmed, especially the top 10% right now are getting a lot of requests in the United States. And so I've sent it to a number of donor networks in hopes that we'll gather a few representatives from those networks who will then be able to tell others about it. And we included the CNN link and obviously the webpage link and a request for them to donate. They'll have questions because they need, a lot of startups fizzle out, and they need to know that we are structurally and, that we have good planning going on. But I think it's great for us to get going in this way so that we then begin on at least a quarterly, if not monthly basis, have these donor briefings. And we welcome donors from all over the country and all over the world. It will help us to have the exact figures, to be able to say there are 300 people on all the committees or whatever it is, and we've had, we've raised this much internally. My hope also is that we'll get a perhaps a pledge to go in, a match that we could go into the calls with to say, hey, we have $7,500 and we'd like to get up to 15,000 on this call, or after this call, once you've had your questions answered, so that we have something to actually ask them
incentivize their giving and their inquiry. So that's about all, and I'm joyfully doing this work in hopes that we can have money to work with as we need it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Betsy, and thank you, Tracy. I'm going to do a little switcheroo. I have Ken next on the agenda, but I'm just going to say a few things before I hand it over to Ken, just little pieces. So first, Hans Corell, who's on the call, who's we all know, is former chief counsel of the UN system, and he has correctly said we need to have more legal information about pardon me, how we're organized. And so that's now up on the website. So it makes me breathe more easily because Hans is very formidable, especially when he sees something that needs to be fixed. So thank you, Hans. And thank you so much to Noreen for helping get that in order. Bob Holden is on the call, also the former governor of Missouri. And he has very, very generously agreed to lead a campaign first inviting all other, or as many other former US governors as possible to join on and sign a letter in support of our declaration. And then the next step will be from that base reaching out to former governors around the world, and with Miguel and Luchen's committee, and with this big, larger group of coordinators, we're imagining, thinking of all kinds of groups that we can ask that of, whether it's spiritual leaders or businesses or civil society organizations, and use that as a way of first connecting people around principles and then working together to achieve aligned outcomes. One other thing I just wanted to see if it was okay with everybody. Many people, most of the people on this call were original signatories of the declaration. We've now have a small number of thousands. We need more of people who've signed the pledge. And I just wanted to see, you can just whatever, put it on chat, but if it would be okay with you for all the people who are our early joiners who've kind of signed on, to give them the opportunity to also be, if they choose, to be original signatories of the declaration, and to include them on the site in that capacity, and to invite them to join this group. So maybe just you can put it in chat. I imagine most people will be comfortable with that, but if there, maybe I'm not thinking of something and just wanted to check that with you. And so very significantly, I wanted to hand it over to Ken, who's really just been part of the heart and soul of everything. And I feel like we've kind of partly colonized Ken's life, where he has so many other things happening. But again, another person I didn't know 2 months ago. And now if I have a day without 3 video calls that Ken's on, I just feel like something's wrong with my day. So over to you, Ken.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. I'd like to sort of, if I could look you all in the eyes, I would do that now, but I haven't yet figured out how to do that with Zoom. There's a few things I want to say that are a little bit, I hope it makes you think after we're done with this call. One, last week, in this era where we're being measured, so it's not just is Jamie being measured for being credible, highly educated, and charismatic, which he's getting great grades on, but how are we doing as an organization? Last week, we had 68 Twitter followers. Barack Obama had 110 million. Taylor Swift had 60 million. We had 68. We may think that's fine, but anybody looking to do a cover story anywhere in the world is going to look at that and say, wow, this is a total, what's going on here? We're now up to almost 1,500, which is at least we're on the map. On Facebook, we've got 191 followers, which is not great. So here's my suggestion to everybody. I've got a few, and I don't know that I've ever been in this role before in my entire life. First, please, I know everybody's got a little bit of their reputation they're worried about. Is this going to be good for me, bad for me? But I don't want to view this as an individual gets famous. I want to view this as we all came together story. So please, if there are some people that you know who would be interested in this, write them a note or push something out to them. And when Jamie says 3 and then ask them to get 3, we got to do that. We've only got about 1,100 people signed up so far. So we can talk about 86 countries, but somebody's going to ask, how'd you do with the signups? And we're going to have to say, okay at first, and then not so much, unless we get activated. Secondly, those of you who are comfortable on the Twitterverse, it's not just retweeting things. If you have something interesting to say, share it, because it's your credibility also that's going to help promote this phenomenon. I would also tell you too, and I may be wrong, we've got better branders than me on the call, but I would suggest that we come out as OneShared.World. Some people are already abbreviating us to OSW, and it doesn't track. Nobody knows what we're talking about. OneShared.World has content and meaning inside of it. Next, and I've only got 2 left, I think, and I thought the gym was spectacular, by the way, the more we can get the idea of interdependence into all things, the more we will have changed the meme, changed the story, the narrative of the world. For example, if you sit on a PTA in your community, ask them to bring up interdependence among the children and the families as a topic. If you attend a church or a synagogue, ask them to do a sermon about it. You know, last year, the most popular college course in America was at Yale, and it was on happiness. We should try to get 100 colleges all over the world doing a course on interdependence. People have been suggesting there's this book, there's that lecture, there's that TED Talk. Let's bundle them together. If we could claim that a year from now that there were 100 college courses on interdependence where there were none before, that would be great. If you are a chairman of an association or you're on a board, bring it up. Suggest that this concept of interdependence be part of their annual meeting, their annual discussions. We could all be doing that. I don't think we are yet. And I really do like the movie Spartacus, where everybody joins together and says, you know, we are Spartacus. If we can come together, and I can track on Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook and see, hey, everybody is sparkling this thing alive, it'll be even better than now. The last thing I want to say about funding, and I have raised money for organizations a few times, I would really like to encourage all of you to donate something, even if it's $10. Because when we go out to funders and we say that all of our original signatories are all in, doesn't matter if it's $1,000 or $100, just the optic and the spiritual statement of we're all in, every one of us is in, I think would make a better statement for our future. So thanks for letting me have a few minutes. I hope I'm not coming down hard on people, but I would like to say in a week or two that, wow, look what just happened. We've doubled, we've tripled, we've quadrupled in terms of our presence, because that will be noted by the media as well, which will cause them to do more stories, not just about Jamie, but about all of you and the movement.
Thank you so much, Ken. I agree. And I think that's the only way that we succeed. It's connected to everything that we've said before, is a decentralized, empowered group. And that means that we all have to feel empowered, and that the people who we touch, we need to empower them. And I think it's through all of these means, whether it's communication, education, toolkits. I think that's the name of the game. So thank you so much for that, Ken. But the reason why we're ultimately here is because we so value our humanity. And so to end our time together, we just thought it was best to speak in the universal language of our humanity, which is the language of art. And so for that, we've asked our incredible performer, Tom Yang, who's been one of our group since the beginning, to give us his gift. Tom, over to you.
Hello.
Mm-hmm.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, because I've actually turned down the sound. I have some technical fidgeting to do so that I can play the music and not hear myself singing from the computer. It took me a long time to figure this out, so just bear with me. Okay.
Hey, Tom, I don't know if you know it, but when you share your screen, at the very bottom of the screen sharing on the lower left corner, you can click a box, or click actually a couple boxes that will give your audio quality slight improvement.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I just don't want to really see myself. Okay, that's better. As long as you can hear me and that you can hear the music. I'm gonna sing a song from Schubert's Winterreise, which is my present project. I've been developing and performing the last 3 years, and will continue to for another few years, I think. So thank you, Jamie, for inviting me to share this with you. I don't know if you know Winterreise, but it's a cycle of 24 songs. I've chosen one of them, number 12, which is the last of the first half. It's called Einsamkeit. 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 It's about being alone in a world, but trying to be connected. So I think it was meaningful for me to share with you tonight. Okay, so let me just hit the sound and.
Sorry, if I'm typing that way, you see I drop you down. Are you hearing me? I think typing, that's when I drop you.
I just have to say one more thing before I sing, is that here it's about 1:45, and my neighbors, I don't want to have any problems with my neighbors. I live in an apartment building, and so I'm gonna sing quite softly and try to aim it at the little pickup on my computer. Okay, I hope it's okay, and I'll apologize for that before. Thank you. Wie eine trübe Wolke durch weite Lüfte weht, wenn in der Tanne wiegt ein mattes Lüftchen weht. So zieh ich meine Straße dahin mit trägem Fuß, durch helles, frohes Leben, einsam und ohne Gruß. Ach, da ist die Luft so ruhig, ach, da ist die Welt so licht. Es noch die Sterne tropften, war ich so elend nicht. Ach, da ist die Luft so ruhig, ach, da ist die Welt so licht. Als noch die Sterne tropften, nicht.
Thank you so much for that, Tom. This is a beautiful. So I don't need to say this, but I think as Tom and our conversation and everything that we're doing makes clear, there may be challenges that we face, and whether it's a deadly pathogenic virus or low bandwidth or whatever. But if we all come together and work really hard, humanity will find a way. So thank you to everybody. Thank you for everything that we're all doing together. And meeting is officially done, although anyone can hang around and we'll chat, and it's a good way for you can say hello to my parents, which I'm
Can
gonna.
we say goodbye in our native language as you
Oh
always?
yeah, okay. I'm so, you know, so you start these traditions. All right, everybody unmute yourself. And we're gonna do it. We're going to do, because we have a lot of English speakers here. We have to do it. Everyone say goodbye in not your native language, in some other language. All right.
Wow.
Here we go. Ready?
Wow. Merci.
Mga bansa.
Hello.
Hey guys.
Adios, amigos.
Hello, ciao, bella.
Anna.
Bonsoir,
Sayonara.
Patati,
patam.
Self-sustain tayo, ganyan. Kampi ka sa Amerika.
Hello, Rita.
Hello.
Hi, Rita.
Oh. Pero that will only do so much. At maraming matatamaan dyan pag hindi globalize mo yung mundo. Maraming mag-aano dyan. Yung mga nilabas nating mga trabaho,
well, this is
tamaan yung mga yun.
Rachel can...
Kung ni-require sila, yung mga manufacturing, tatamaan sila. Diba? Tapos, dito naman sa atin, pag mamahal yung mga expenses mo, syempre, Amerikano nagagawa, tataas yung cost. So, tataas yung mga bilihin.
Wow, I don't know what that was, but it sounded
so,
very...
kailangan i-prop up mo yung ano. Kasi mga kakawawa yung mga ano eh, mahihirap eh. So, kailangan
This could just be
tataas mo yung
somebody's
mga
phone call that we're listening to. Actually,
Do you want me to
anticipating obviously it's like a lyrical.
Malalaban ng bring back the jobs. Pero kailangan yung mga citizen na nandito.
All right, bye Katya.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Everybody, thank you so much.
Rita.
Everybody can stick around. Tom, thank you for that beautiful sharing.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Ray.
Bye, everyone.
Tapos yung sa mga red states sa loob.
All right, Kim, we're counting on you for South Africa.
Manalo si Trump, which likely